All right, everybody. My computer tells me we are live streaming on YouTube at the time. I want to thank everybody. I got one more button to push over here. Hold on just a minute. You know, all these buttons I got to push. If I don't push them in sequence, I'm in big trouble.
You need 4 arms.
Yeah, I do need 4 arms. So, hello, everybody. It's good to have you here tonight. Now, we was not here last week, and I want to say why. And, you know, from time to time, we have work problems that come in and things of that nature. But last week was a very special event. Some of you have kept up with us talking about Danielle. We've kindly adopted her, and it was a 39th birthday. And some would say, well, that's not too much. But I found out she never had a birthday party. And so we surprised her with a birthday party. She did not know what was going on. And she thought me and Annie was taking her out to eat, for her birthday. And we got to the restaurant, and there was about 14 people that showed up, and different people. And she cried, and everybody pitched in, and we bought her a present, and people brought stuff, and she just cried. She just couldn't believe it, and had the waitresses crying. They were just, everybody just had a great time. And so that's where we were last week, and it really touched her heart. And so hello for tonight. Terry's going right on into our Genesis, and I believe we're in the 7th day. Is that where we're at, Terry? The 7th day, and Terry's going to pick up on that, and we're going to come back just in a minute and do our tzedakah time. We don't have a whole lot list tonight, but they are important to us. And we're going to do that. And I'd like to welcome everybody listening to Power Faith Radio. We're about to do an upgrade on our computers. Terry and I were talking this week. He's about to do some upgrade stuff, and I've got appointments to take the computers in for upgrade. And we're hoping to have some new features on the radio. So be thinking about that. And if you're watching us tonight via YouTube, we thank you so much for there. While you're there, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. You'll be notified every time a new video goes up. Share them videos with all your social media platform. And you can go over to a Simple Walk Facebook page, and there you'll find all the links. And while we're on this subject, Veronica has posted on Simply Noahide. That's a public group, isn't it, Veronica?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're putting together some funds. Veronica's putting together some funds to help somebody. They've got children, and the AC is out, and Veronica is felt the need to help on that endeavor. So and I made a comment over there earlier. I don't know if you saw it, Veronica, but with all the people in our Facebook groups, if just now it's just like 720 people. Is it 720 or six, something like that, 600 people? If they would just give $1 a piece out of all those thousands of people, $1 a piece, it wouldn't take any time at all for that need to be met. And I think sometimes people see the big number and they say, oh, I can't help that. Well, you all know me, a lot of dollars goes a long way. Oh, that's a new one right there. So a lot of dollars go a long way.
There you go, Scotty.
Yeah. So also, if you would like to send us any questions or comment, you can send that to our email address. It is outreachnoah@gmail.com. Terry, pick up and greet everybody that's in the Zoom room.
All righty. Greetings, everyone. Of course, Scotty's down there in the engine room with a whole new arrangement of the buttons.
Yeah.
He's had all these updates, and it's going to even be more than that when we get both our computers. I'll have mine by the end of August and everything, because his and our computers will not run Windows 11. So Scotty's computer guy is going to build us all a new bunch of computers that'll handle the new Windows 11 and even do a lot more. So looking forward to that coming up here by the end of August or so. Get that up and going. Then Scotty, he said he could give it all she's got, Copton, but he can't find the button.
Can't find the button. It fell off in the floor.
It fell off in the floor.
I've always wondered, those buttons, they're I guess I can talk about this. They're doing something, but when somebody hits them, all the pieces of plastic fall off. And there's, is there some buttons under the buttons?
There might be some buttons on the buttons.
I don't know. I know I dropped a keyboard one time, an older keyboard, and all my keys fell off. And I had hooked on phonics, and I'm going to tell you, I put all the keys in the wrong place. Go ahead, Terry.
All right. Then we have Ronald here with us tonight, Namuela, and Bob, Karen, Veronica, Wendy, and Will is all here with us in the Zoom room. As Scotty has also said in the past, you can go over to A Simple Walk and also to Ronald's No Hides of Australia and New Zealand group. And Scotty's got the links to the Zoom room there if you want to come and join us. You don't have to have your camera on. If you want to come and join us, you're welcome to come and join us and everything. So, the greetings to the YouTube group and also the Power Faith Radio broadcasting around the world. And Scotty gets some real interesting, I think, emails from different folks, don't you?
I get quite a few messages, and to be honest, I appreciate the people listening, but sometimes I can't repeat it. So, I mean, just the way.
Oh, that's with anything you do.
Yeah. But there are a lot of people that's interested, but I think we got those folks that just love to listen to see if they can find something to.
Well, I'm going to give them some good stuff tonight. So,
okay, good deal.
We got some good more. Tonight, we're going to continue on in our journey into Genesis. We're going to be completing the, God willing, the study of the creation week. We're entering into chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. About the seventh day. I've got some other things I'm going to share after we cover those initial verses pertaining to the seventh day as well. That probably will stir some questions, but that's okay. We enjoy the questions. Scotty just keeps putting them up out there, and we're going to eventually have us a good Q&A session here in probably a few weeks.
I know after today, after this one, and then if we get into the going over Adam and Eve, we're really I've got some stuff lined up. So
when we get into the original scriptures and what it says, we learn a whole lot.
Yeah.
And because a lot of it wasn't known to us, all we knew was translation and those who did their best with the translations to teach us. But we're going through and correcting some of those teachings, learning from the originals. That's what makes it all fun and games. Yeah. Scotty, you about ready?
I am ready. It won't take too long. Now, on the radio, we got quite a few different little jingle commercials. And I was listening to the radio today. There's a rabbi that comes on, and he had sent me some new stuff, and I put him on. I was listening to it at work today, and my wife come on. I was trying to find it so I could play it tonight, but it's in rotation. It says, around the world and across the heavens, you're listening to Power Faith Radio. Remind me about it when you just said that there, Terry. So,
all right. It was from the Great Smoky Mountains.
We broadcast from the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee. So anyway, all right, we're going to get started in our Tzedakah time tonight. We appreciate everybody that's helped us in this and that's sent names in. And as I've always said, you don't have to send any kind of funds in. Just send the names in, and we've got some dollars and some change we have here sitting around that we will put in the Tzedakah fund. And I want to say, remember, while we're on Tzedakah, I'm going to push it tonight, Veronica. Veronica's got that fund raising going on over in Simply Noahide, going over there to that Facebook group. And even if you just give $1, there's no gift too small. Somebody may be listening. They'll go on over and finish that up, Veronica. Just go ahead and say, hey, let's finish it up. And so hopefully you're listening. You'll go run over and do that. So I will ask for money for somebody else, but I won't ask for it for myself. So that's the way it goes, right? All right, we're going to get right in. We always give tzedakah for our main teacher, Pesach and Shira Sherbo. And then tonight also we're giving tzedakah for Rabbi Laser Brody. What was he having done today, Veronica, or soon? What was he having done?
Oh, I can't even pronounce what he was having done. It has something to do with a heart valve.
repair or replacement, something. But
I think it was low maintenance, so I don't think it was a replacement.
okay, so like a maintenance thing, but we got him on our Sadaka list, and you'll hear from him, Veronica. Will you hear from him about you or Ronald one? Somebody will about how it went, and you can let us know, and we'll keep him on our Sadaka list until we find out there. Uh, Also tonight we have William West. William West, as we speak, he is having open heart surgery. So we got William West on our Sadaka list. Also Janice Brandon. Have you heard from Janice? How is she doing, Ronald?
Yeah, I had a big conversation with her last weekend. She's improved a bit, but she's still having, more difficulty trying to get some productive sleep at night because of the pain.
Yeah.
But yeah, there has been slight improvement. She's looked, when you see her, she looks in better shape than she has in the past.
Okay, we're going to keep her on our Sadaka list. Also, Wendell and Mary Parsons is on our Sadaka list tonight. Also, somebody always tells us that make sure you give Sadaka for Amuela Asher, Veronica Port, and Thomas Schaus. I don't know where Thomas is tonight. Let's see, did somebody just, replacement. Okay, thank you, Will. I believe he said he just sent a text over there. Let me see if I can find it here. See, I can't even pronounce it. It's a replacement. TAVR. Thank you, Will. Will, you got to remember when you put those big words in, I'm from Townsend, Tennessee. And the biggest word we spell is corn. So thank you, Will, for putting that in there. Trans-Arctic
valve replacement. I just had one too.
Okay, how are you doing?
And going to cardiac rehab.
Okay. You sound good.
Yep. It's just an overnight thing. I mean, it sounds worse than it is. It's just you go in one night, go one day, and get out the next day.
I got to say that's amazing what they can do anymore. Well, I'm giving Sadaka for you right now with that. Thank you. You're recover quickly, Will. Recover quickly. All right. Also tonight, Thomas, I don't know where Thomas is at tonight, but we'll check. Yeah, we'll check on him later. And then also Joanna Flynn Wakeff. We're giving Sadaka for her tonight. She's recovering from knee replacement. And then Ronald, you was telling us about you before we started. And then while you're there, talk about your sister. How you doing?
Well, I'll start with my sister. There's no updates there. Still just going through the motions of excessive pain. The scan showed nothing except in a discussion with the doctor that there's probably pressure being put on nerves by the mesh that they've inserted, and nothing they will do about that. They said it'd be more complications possibly coming out if they went back in. So it'll another lot of pain medication to go on top of the pain medication I'm on. So something that sounds like it'll be permanent, because unless the pressure on the nerves ceases, it's going to be ongoing.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to continue to pray for you, Ronald, and pray with you. So also in our blessed memory tonight is Dale Roberts. We talked to his wife yesterday, and this is the anniversary of his passing. And so leaving this walk of life, and we're giving blessed memory, may it go for his merits, Dale Roberts. Would you help us pray tonight? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. We ask that you have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor, for we know that you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. You are our King. Do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, I'm going to get you ready for speaker view here, and just step back and give it to you.
All righty. Scotty, we have anything from last week we need to cover real quick? I think he's being
No,
bashful.
I believe we're good. I believe we're good right now.
I think he's being bashful.
Yeah.
All righty. We'll just jump right on in here. As I said, we're going to, God willing, we'll complete our learning on the creation week. Last week, the last class, we covered finished covering the sixth day. And we are in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 and 3 tonight. Verse 2, I'm reading again. Our primary source is the Hirsch Humish on Genesis. Our other sources tonight comes from the Art Scroll Scottstein or Stone Edition Humish and the Milstein Edition Prophets of Ezekiel that I'll use tonight as well. And the Art Scroll Tanakh series Bereshis, just small section there I want to use as well. I'll have I've been putting the list of our sources in the description below in the video. So if anyone wants to go and find out what sources that we're using, I'm trying to get those listed at each class. Okay, verse 2 says, "Then with the seventh day, God completed the work that he had made, and with the seventh day, he ceased from all the work that he had made." Rabbi Hirsch talking about on the concept of the host that we talked about in our last class. The word host is closely connected with another concept which we meet in this passage. Everything that God has created is called, in the Hebrew, it's called melachah. When we see the word work there, that he completed his work and he ceased from his work, the word there is melachah. There's one other place that this is mentioned, this particular word is mentioned in the Torah, and that is with the commandment of Israel not to work on the tabernacle on the Sabbath. And the word melachah is there. This is another one of these areas where a lot of Western religion has been messed up by creating doctrines and belief systems based on translation and not on the original words of God. Because here, melachah does not denote the English word work as in a sense of labor, but in a sense of completion or accomplishment. And we're going to get more into detail on that. Labor is concerned only with toil and the effort entailed in an activity without regard to the result. Melachah, by contrast, is concerned only with the result of the objective, the product of the activity, and that's a lot of words. And I'll sum that up in an easy to understand here in just a second. When we go further into this. So when we hear people who are, and I did this myself in the past. I grew up in a Sabbatarian type denomination, not the Seventh-day Adventist, but similar. But we were like, well, we can't go to our jobs on the Sabbath. That's not what this is saying. This is not what. Matter of fact, there's a lot that people say that goes on in these two passages that doesn't actually go on, and we're going to be covering that tonight a little bit. Let's see here, page 82. Went too far. Here we go. It says his work which he had done throughout the 6 days. Everything was now in a state of completion. We discussed a lot of that in the last class. Thus, God concluded his purposeful work, his melachah, so that no further creative or developing actions of his would follow other than the maintenance of the existing universe in its existing working condition. When applied to man, the term melachah, commonly translated as work, is misleading. For in its halakhic, which that's a Jewish word, it means its legal stance. Melachah is by no means identical with physical strain or exertion. In technical terms, what the word melachah means, when you boil all of this down, and we're going to see it because we're going to talk about it here just for a few minutes, is the creative work, the creative actions that God was doing during the creation parts of each of the days. When he completed his work, it means he completed his creative actions. And he had what he had made, and on the seventh day he ceased. He stopped the creative actions. Nothing else is going to be becoming new. He's not making anything. He's not forming anything. He's not creating anything. It has come to a complete stop. Rabbi Hirsch gives an example of this melachah in a human sense. He gives an example. He says, suppose that some willow branches lie before us, as such that they have no specific purpose and can be used for a variety of purposes. But if we weave them into a basket, then they will henceforth serve only that purpose that I have assigned to them by giving them a new form. The branches that I weave into the basket becomes my impersonal, my melachah, or my work of creation. We took a raw element and we used the raw elements and we made something with it. We created something with the raw elements. And that's what God was doing after the first verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and everything, all the ingredients were there. And from that point, he started forming with the ingredients what he wanted. And on the sixth day after the creation of man, which we went through again, you can go and look up the videos on the sixth day, he completed his work. And on the seventh day, he ceased. He ceased. That's the word there is Shabbat. He ceased. He stopped his creating activities. Rabbi Hirsch goes on and says, clearly only an intelligent being, God, and far below him, man, can create a melachah, a creative activity. Work performed by an animal becomes melachah only through the intelligence of man, who uses the animal's power for his purpose. Every existing thing that is in the universe is called melachah Elohim, or the work of God. Not only by its very existence is it a realization of a divine thought, but it continuously implements God's thoughts, which are implanted in every realized thought. The amount of matter and energy that God gives each existing thing and the form that he inscribes on it makes each existing thing a melachah Hashem. the creation of the work of God. Being and working in the whole universe expresses God's thoughts and messages. I like this little section he wrote right here. He says, science investigates the being and the working of the created things. You might want to write this down. I love this part right here. The truth is, science investigates God's thoughts. I love that. Science investigates God's thoughts. The scientist who denies, let me back up here. The science investigates God's thoughts, which are reflected in the created things and in their mission. Man knows something only if he is discerned in the object of his study of the thoughts of God. The scientist who denies God and devotes his life into investigating the ideas in nature discovers in every law he finds any force, in everything and every purpose he finds in any pattern traces of God, of the God in which he denies with his lips. The scientist is actually studying the very thoughts of God, the God he denies. So as we said on the sixth day, when things are finished, it says, thus the heaven and the earth and all their hosts were brought by God to completion. The world as a whole and each individual part of it was assigned their post. God, when he finished it, he signed everything to its post, its mission. The sun has its mission. The moon has its missions. The stars has their missions. The oak trees have their missions. The corn stalks have their missions. The fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the animals of the land, and man and earth has all specific given missions by God. And all of that was brought to a close on the sixth day, and it was set forth on the seventh day when he completed his work by ceasing. That's what the seventh day represents. And that's what we're going to talk about right here. It's when it says right here, and God completed. And then with the seventh day, God completed the work that he had made. And with the seventh day, he ceased. The word Shabbat, that's the word Shabbat. He ceased from all the work that he had made. This is the chronicle of the establishment of the Sabbath of creation that we discussed here the other day, the Sabbath of creation. We are in that Sabbath. The whole earth is in that Sabbath because the ceasing from creation hasn't stopped. God hasn't picked up the creative and added anything new to his creation. It is still ceased. So as Rabbi Hirsch describes, all of humanity, all of creation on the earth and throughout all the universe is in what's called a Sabbath of creation, a ceasing of creation. That's what Sabbath in creation really means, a ceasing in creation. He ceased. When reading it, we should bear in mind that the people receiving it were already familiar with the Sabbath laws at that time, in theory as well as in practice. The people knew that the meaning of the seventh day as a reminder of creation and man's place in creation. That's what the seventh day should be. It should be a reminder that God ceased his creating and he's put everything in its place. And man should know his place in creation through this seventh day. The sixth and the seventh day, really, when you get into them, these 2 days, defines a lot of man's mission and connection with God on the earth. He said, so with the establishment of the Sabbath, or the seventh day, all the work of the visible creation, not only man, attained a final completion and perfection. He was kind of dotting his I's, crossing his T's, however you want to put it. On the seventh day, it's over. Everything's completed. Everything is at the perfection that he had designed within it. God completed the creation. Now, Rabbi Hirsch comes down to the word Shabbat, the word that is translated as cease. Shabbat is not synonymous with rest. When you see the translations within these 2 verses where God rested on the Sabbath day, he didn't rest as we see what rest is in the human body, human mind. He ceased. He stopped. So it is not synonymous with rest. Shabbat is not complete inactivity. It is not complete inactivity. Rather, it means ceasing work and desisting from continuing in it. And the work he's talking about is creative activity. He no longer creates. It's done. Like way he put it in on the 6th day when he said, God said, it's enough. If he hadn't said it's enough in the 6th day, it would still been going on. But he said in the 6th day, it's enough. And in the 7th day, he ceased all creative activities. Nothing new was coming. So our verse means with the 7th day, God ceased from all the work that he had made. For when with the 7th day, everything he created reached its intended permanent state. God ceased because no further alterations was necessary. Scotty, anything? Because it won't take me long to go through this next verse. And then I've got some other things I'm going to share.
That's the part the last thing you covered. That's what I was kind of looking for, was that everything he made, he put it in its proper place, and everything that needed to be where it needed to be was where it needed to be.
Right. And I love how he put it here, and no further alterations are necessary.
Yeah.
That's what we understand when we look into the seventh day, is to know that God completed his work and that there's no other alterations were needed. The Sabbath of creation is that there is a proof now for thousands of years there's not been a new thing.
So is this one of the reasons, I'm going to bring this up just to give some clarification to some of the commandments, some of the laws, some of the observations that, of course, it's not mostly to the Jews that I'm about to bring up, that about crossbreeding, about
because you're bringing alterations to a perfect, already existing perfect thing,
like grafting and all those things. That's why they're really frowned upon, is because we're trying.
Yeah, even though the nations have aspects of the laws of mixing that we're not permitted to mix. Now, in grafting, there are some areas that are permitted when when you're grafting within a species. Mainly, we're talking about fruit, not animals, but fruit. And so you have two two apples two apples, and you're bringing the best of both together, that's not a mixing, that's forbidden. But you can't crossbreed an apple and a pear.
Okay. So while we're discussing this, will you go over and look at Veronica's text she put in the? She's got two texts there that I think are pretty good questions we might need to cover because.
Says, so what happened on the next day?
I think Terry explained that.
Okay.
Stand correctly that Hashem is still on Shabbat.
Yes, it's all of creation is still on seventh day because we are still in the era of his ceasing from creating. So as far as the creation, when Rabbi Hirsch talks about a Sabbath of creation, that's what he's meaning, that creation is in a Sabbath or a ceasing, that there are not any new alterations or new creations coming from God, that the Sabbath is or this creation is in a Sabbath in a state of ceasing, because that's what Sabbath means. The creation is in a state of ceasing where God has ceased.
Last question. The next question
is Hashem's day is not 24. Well, let's see, that's different. He's in a total different realm. We're in the physical realm. Our hours are based on the sun and the earth.
I guess what I'm asking is, if the seventh day is not necessarily 24 hours, then are days 1 through 6 not necessarily 24 hours, since the seventh isn't? I guess that's my question.
Well, here on earth, the seventh day is a 24-hour day.
No. I'm talking about the creation week.
Yeah, well, the creation week. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the terminology that Rabbi Hirsch is using, is the Sabbath of creation, is that for thousands of years, we have been on a Shabbat, a ceasing. God ceased. There's no more creating going on. And then when God gives Israel, which we're going to look at here later, about the Sabbath and the seventh day, it is related with the rising and the setting of the sun.
So I think I heard a question in there as Veronica was talking, bringing this up. So we're going to say the 7 days or the 6 days of creation. We look at them as a 24-hour time span each day, but that's the way we're judging them. Mm-hmm. Were they longer than a 24-hour? Were they just a day? How was time measured during that time?
Yeah, that's what's in it, because it's interesting, because even on the first and the second day, it says in the morning and the evening was the first day. The sun and the earth, was the sun given the light yet? So there's a lot of questions we don't have. I mean, of course, I know there are rabbis that have those answers, because there are speculations of how long each day was.
Okay.
Because he uses the word yom, and I've heard a teaching on a rabbi, the word yom in Hebrew is day, but the word yom also can be a period or something like that, or era or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a while since I heard that teaching, but there is a teaching on the word yom, which is the Hebrew word for day. But when God begins narrowing things down pertaining and giving things to man to do, then it's related with the rising and setting of the sun, a 24-hour period. But for the creation week, I think there's always been questions. How long was those days? That I don't have the answer for, because I really haven't got into those studies. But I think there are some teachings from rabbis that discuss that. Kind of gets deeper into the mystical side.
Okay. All right, Terry, I'm putting you back on speaker view.
All right. So verse 3 it says that God blessed the seventh day and he made it holy, for with it he ceased all creative activities in which he, God, had created in order to continue shaping it. He ceased. He ceased from, he blessed it and made it holy, holy being set apart, because he had ceased from his work. Now, this is where I'm going to start opening up some worms, Scotty. So you got your fishing pole so we can go fishing. Nowhere in these two passages has God commanded man to do any form of observance or ceasing of himself. All we have here is God ceasing. Those that say, and like I said, I was a Sabbatarian one time, used to say these things, but those who say that God commands man at this point to keep a Sabbath are adding to the scripture that which is not there, making a commandment which God did not make. It is a falsehood to say that God commands man to observe a Sabbath from these two passages. It's a falsehood. All we see here in these two passages is God ceasing from his creative activities. There would be no man observing any form of Sabbath like this until the time of Abraham through his child Isaac, in the creating and the making of the holy nation of Israel, that they would do this. God did not give a Sabbath to all of humanity as far as a ritual day of, quote, rest or observances. Again, because of translation, a lot of people have come up with a lot of nonsenses. In Ezekiel chapter 20, verses 10 through 12, God is talking through the prophet here. He says, "So I took them out of the land of Egypt," which we're going to go to that passage next. "So I took them out of the land of Egypt and brought them to a wilderness." Who did he bring out of Egypt? Who did he take into a wilderness? Did he take the nations of the world? No. He took Israel. He says, "So I took them from the land of Egypt, brought them to the wilderness. I gave them my decrees and laws. I have made known to them," the ones that came out of Egypt into the wilderness, "I've made known to them, and my laws I've made known to them, through which if a man fulfills, he will live through them." This is talking about Israel. In verse 12, he says, "And I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, to know that I am Hashem who sanctifies them." So we see here that through the prophet, Creator is telling us that he gave them, the people he brought out of Egypt, his decrees, his laws, and his Sabbaths. So let's go over to Exodus chapter 20. In Exodus chapter 20, we have the famous 10 Commandments, which the religions of the West loves trying to post everywhere. That's a problem, because as this little statue, little thing that I have here, one of the last things my mom gave me before she passed away, is the very well-known 10 Commandments. I see them posted at work. It all starts right here, that you must not have any other gods but me. But it also says here on the fourth commandment, "Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, and honor your mother and your father," and all these other things. And you go to any worship place and find these, you'll find them in this order. It's a problem. They leave out part of the first commandment. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, and God spoke all of these statements, saying, I am Hashem your God, who has taken you out of the land of Egypt and from the house of bondage. And you shall have no other, recognize any other gods before me. And then it goes on. Everyone that posts the plaques of the 10 Commandments and everywhere, all over the place, and wants it in our government buildings, leaves off this very first sentence that tells us that the 10 Commandments was given to Israel, because he did not bring us out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Now, some want to throw some spiritual stuff in there. I guess you can do that. There's some spiritual aspect, but I'm talking about plain meaning of the text. So he gave this stuff to Israel. When the Tanakh was attached to Western religious writings, everybody believes when they read this stuff, well, he's talking about me. No. If you believe that God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath, and if you are not Israel or Jewish, then you are believing in a falsehood. I'm going to be strong about that because it's true, because falsehood, saying that God done something and he didn't, is a very serious act. He makes comments about that in his prophets. He doesn't take it very well that people go around saying I said something and I didn't. We have to take this very serious. And there's big movements of folks wanting to observe the Sabbath, and I can understand. I grew up with it. I even studied to join the Jewish nation for 7 years and studied the laws of Sabbath that through the understanding of the building of the tabernacle, which is, very, very, very deep, very, very interesting for me. I enjoyed it. And I only got a scratch of it. And they're actually called the 39 melachahs, or the 39 creations, or works of creative activity, the 39 works of created activity that Israel is not permitted to do on the Sabbath. See, a lot of people don't understand it. That if you live in a 2-story house on the Sabbath, the Jew can take a chair and he can run up and down stairs with that chair all day long and never violate the Sabbath. But if he sits down with a piece of paper and take a pencil and he makes a mark on it, he's violated Sabbath, because now he's done a creative activity. It's just, that's a simple, example. It's the creative activities that God ceased from. And so that's the creative activities that God has told Israel to stop doing as well, to come be with him and stop all creative activities, which is very vast. It's a very, very vast undertaking to learn everything that God expects of them. And so the question arises, and I love this little article I found years ago by Rabbi Friedlander. So God didn't give us all of this. He gave Israel the Torah. He gave them the festival days of Leviticus 23. He goes in there and states that they're his, and he's given them to them. He's speaking to Israel in Leviticus chapter 23. He's speaking to Israel in Leviticus 23, or not 23, but in the book of Leviticus. He's speaking to them in Numbers and them in Deuteronomy. They are the subject of the Torah. So, where does that leave the rest of us? If he's not giving us any holidays to worship him by, for the rest of us, where does that leave us? The rest of creation. Israel's God's chosen people. He gave them the priesthood, and he gave them a set of rules to be able to operate that priesthood. Well, Rabbi Alan Friedlander wrote a really interesting article called The Role of the Gentile in Creation. Now, I'm just going to hit some highlights from this. It said the natural state of humankind is to be a ben Noach. A ben Noach means a child or son of Noah. All humanity are ben Noach. Israel was ben Noach up until Sinai, when they became Israel. He separated them from the nations, like he separated a woman from man, and they become two different. They're still humans, but they're two different species of humanity. Israel is a different species of humanity. They are the priesthood of humanity. And he separated them at Mount Sinai at the giving of the Torah. The rest of us are still the children of Noah. And Noah was a righteous and a moral man who walked with God, which we will be getting into, and as we get into our journey in Genesis, when we get into Genesis chapter 9. He goes on, he says, a Gentile who observes the laws of God given to Adam and Noah, which are the 7 laws which we've talked about on here, of no idolatry, no blasphemy, no murder, no theft, no forbidden sexual relations, and not to eat meat taken from a living animal, which was the 7th one that God gave Noah, and the setting up of just courts and justice systems based on those laws. They're categorical. They've been around since Adam, and they've never was replaced. The Torah does not replace them. It enhances them. It underpins them, holds them up. But he says the first generation of humanity had no Jew among them. God made the people the way he wanted them to be. Then he added a different role for the people of Israel. So the Torah's 613 commandments was an upgrade to the world in some ways that it was not ready for it, but yet God knew that most nations wouldn't accept it, and we didn't. Therefore, it was not God's intention to make spirituality of regular human beings dependent upon the 613 commandments of the Torah. We are not dependent upon them. Rather, the Torah commandments were to make a special people to be an example for regular humans, to compare notes with, and then to continue on the progression in spiritual self-improvement. But that people is the exception and not the rule. The people of Israel are an essential spiritual vitamin to the world, but it's not the norm that God desired to create in his world. They don't fill the full populace. How then are the Gentiles more natural to God's plan in this world than the Jews are? In Psalms 89:3, it says, Olam Chesed Yabona. God created the world for chesed, for kindness. Therefore, he made the most of the spiritual workers. Get this. This coming from a rabbi. God made most of the spiritual workers on this planet, those people who could potentially pursue God's work 24/7. And we are those people. We have a spiritual work that goes 24/7. But they need spiritual representatives to pray for them, to guide them. But those representatives must rest from their projects a full day a week, whether they like it or not, so they can maintain the lofty role. Those are the Jewish people. That's the term we use today, or the people of Israel. Yet they cannot work on a whole day, and we talk about work, it's different than what we were just talking about, work, the melachah, on a whole day of the week. Yet Adam was made for work. Job 5:7. And clearly in this context, the most adaptable pool of workers for God's honor are the Gentile peoples. While the Jews have an extra spiritual intensive role featuring 10 times the commandments that a regular person has, they are a people who join spiritual think tank, as it were. And it can only be expected of them to have some elevated knowledge and knowledge level, in this case, the capacity for spiritual guidance more than the average person, a knowledge that can help humanity in the progression toward eternity. But as far as long-term projects of civilizations, Jews must perforce be cloistered away from the normative society, especially on the Sabbath day and festivals, in order to preserve the lofty spiritual state required for them to keep up that heavy spiritual workload with joy. If you feel you're missing out on what normal people enjoy, it's hard to serve God with joy. Sometimes it is. The Jews must accept their extra burden with joy, lest the light of the nations go dim. See, they have to keep their level up high. God gives them the Sabbath and festivals to refuel them and to keep them up at a level so the light of the nations don't go dim. And he goes on, and Rabbi Friedlander says, while a Jew is in prayer on the Sabbath, a Gentile can perform an act of kindness by tending the ill at a hospital. Whereas a Jew must stop helping someone with their broken car. As the Sabbath begins, the Gentile can simply complete the task right then and there. While the Jews are compelled to be in a festival prayer service, and I like this little example he writes, a Jewish astronaut at the very moment can repair a weather satellite in outer space and help protect an island's residents from the consequences of a tropical storm. The spiritual task at hand is the Gentiles' main priority, not the prayer service in any synagogue or other worship place. Our spiritual task is at hand, not the prayer and service in a worship center. Because God created that spiritual flexibility as an intrinsic power in nominative humanity. He substituted that for a different role for the Jew. The Jew must interrupt for the Sabbath, but the Gentile continues the current good deed that is before him or her, the kindness done, the defense of God's honor. No delay is necessary. Thank you. They do not have the priestly constraints that a Jew has as a member of the priestly nation. And he ends with that God knew exactly what he was doing when he made most people, the majority of the world, as Gentiles. By making most people Gentiles, God was preparing a pool of talent for perpetual kindness to occur in the world. That is only possible when Gentiles try to be the best Gentile that they can be, the best natural human, in order to fulfill the goals of the blessed Creator. So we are not left out. God didn't give us the Sabbath and the festivals on purpose, because his greatest pool of spiritual workers needs to be available 24/7 when he beckons them. Scotty, did I open up a can of worms?
Night crawlers maybe, but not worms.
Night crawlers. Oh, those are good to fish with. I can get them on the hook.
So let's cover a couple of things. First of all, I want to add something Ronald put over here. And yet people think it means Gentiles are supposed to go to their place of employment 7 days a week and have no rest.
No, that's not what that means. We are not permitted as part of our laws. We are not permitted to create a new religion or a new day of worship based on spirituality. If we're going to rest for spiritual reasons, we're not permitted for that. Because our spirituality is 24/7. in the mornings, we can get up and we can pray, we can study, we can do that 7 days a week. If you need to take a little bit of rest and time, that's fine. If you need to take rest from work, that's not a problem.
Or retire.
Or retire from work, that's not a problem. We're just not permitted to do it for spiritual reasons, because our spirituality is a 24/7 spirituality. And what we're involved with. God doesn't expect us to work ourselves into the ground and just force. No, we don't have to go to our employment 7 days a week. I know some people who do. This week's my 6-day week. I have 6 work days because I have to work at Lexus Saturday. But no, that's not what that means. We can take a break. There's times like, I'm wore out on Sunday. I don't do hardly anything around here on Sundays because I've worked all week long because I work till 5:30 every day. Of course, it's summer. I do have some daylight time, but in the wintertime, it's even harder to come home and do work at all. So I've got one day I try to cram as much as I can in. There's Sunday mornings I set up and do my reading or whatever and relaxing. I get on YouTube and talk with a couple friends that day. I might still do a few little things around the house, but I've not ceased from my working. We're not permitted to cease from our working for a spiritual standpoint, because that's brought out in the great Rabbi Samson R talks about that when he teaches on Genesis 8:22. So it's not that God doesn't give us anything that we have to be, worked into the ground 7 days a week. We're just not permitted to stop for spiritual reasons and create a Sabbath day where we stop and we worship. Now, does that mean that we can't come together sometime and have a time of study and maybe even some time of prayer? No, we can't make that as a commanded regular service. But if we all want to get together and have 15, 20 of us, 3 of us, whatever, it doesn't matter. Ever so often get together, that's not a problem. We just can't make a completely new system of that, because he has Israel to do that for us.
So we can't evoke the position of, well, God commanded me to do this, but we can get together and pray. I like something that Bob put. A lot of people go to the beach on Saturday. Bob, I don't have a beach here, but I do have a good river.
We got rivers here, and lakes.
But and why not? I think it depends. Why not go to prayer service? So I want to throw this in because if I can I add one more line to that, Bob? It depends on people's passion. What is your passion? What is your desire? My wife and I, every once in a while, we'll take a drive, because I'm working all the time. I don't know if any of you know it, but I work.
He works 9 days a week.
And so we'll take a drive, and the whole time we're driving, we're talking about Torah, and we have so much fun out of that, and we'll get lost. You would think as long as I've lived here, I would know the roads, and we'll just have so much fun. We'll say, now, do you know where this? I don't know where it comes out. And then we'll just keep talking different stories, and Torah and stuff, and and then we'll come out someplace. Oh yeah, I know where. We'll have such a great time doing that. That to me is like could that be a prayer service? Is that a connecting thing to the Creator? So just throwing that in.
It's not the fact, Bob, of going to one. It's making it feel like it's a have to, that I have to do this and I have to do it on a regular basis. But to go is, I used to, go visit, the synagogue down in Atlanta, and I loved it. I love sitting in an Orthodox synagogue service. If you want chill bumps, watching God's people come before him and serve him and listening to them. I've sat and I have bawled my eyes out before, especially when they raise that Torah up and, they sing the song, "This is the Torah that Moshe," and just the different aspects of the Orthodox service that I have visited. And I mean, I've even went to one in New York with my first rabbi that I studied under, and a lot of it was in Yiddish. And I just stood there frozen. And the first service I went to, he took me to I love this place. It's called Emunis Israel. It's a shul that's in New York. And I loved it. I bawled my eyes out, and it was called the Kabbalat Shabbat service, and it means welcoming the Sabbath. And coming from the South and from my past, I told my 70-year-old rabbi, Hungarian Satmar, which Satmars are some of the more restricted. They take on a lot of restriction upon themselves. But I told him, I said, this was a Pentecostal Jewish service, because, I mean, Scotty, talking about passion, these guys bringing in the Sabbath. I mean, literally, I'm sitting there, kind of in the back, and I'm being absorbed in this. And my rabbi friend, David, they said he was 70s. He had his tallit wrapped around him, and he had his hands like this, and he had him on his heart, and tears was rolling down his eyes as he was praying the prayers of welcoming the Sabbath in Hebrew. And it's amazing. It is amazing to watch God's people do their service. But he did not do any, how am I going to put this? He did give them some special things, but then he gave us, we are the largest part of God's service. We're his biggest army. The Gentile peoples is his biggest army on the face of the earth. We are all over the planet. We are in every nation. And every nation has its own things it's dealing with. And those who really want to serve God will start reaching out to humanity and getting involved, just like what Veronica has done for this young family whose air conditioning is down. We can do that because we're here. We're here now. We're 24/7. We're on call for God 24/7 to do his service and his work. And he created us to do that. He gave us the bodies and the abilities. He doesn't give us the commandments that restrain us. It's not a sin to do the things that we need to do 24/7. That is a sin for a Jew to do, because they're given something totally different. If we need to, on Saturday, go out and help some people change a flat tire, or work on their car, change their oil, or if it's a single mother with kids and they need help around the house, send me some plumbing stuff, we can go, and it's not a sin. It's actually a merit. It is a merit to be able to go anytime, 24/7, and do the service of God for another human being. It's a merit, and he made us for that. He didn't leave us out. That was the words I was looking for. He did not leave us out. He actually gave us a more extensive, greater duty. We may not have 613 commandments that we have to learn their details and do. We only have 7 categorical. But when you look at them, you'll see how vast they are. They're a lifetime of just study within those 7. But he has given us these things to where we can go do this great work all over the world at the drop of a hat. We don't have time restraints. We don't have dietary restraints other than not eating meat taken from a living animal. We can go and we can be human beings to another human being. And that's what he designed us for.
Okay, I got some worms to stir.
Okay.
I'm going to rephrase a question or statement. I'm going to rephrase it here a little bit. Can we Gentiles and Noahides worship God in organized groups without creating a new religion? Is that possible? Can we do that?
I think it is absolutely possible. The problem is man and his traditions can kind of get in the way sometimes and cause some problems. It's not forbidden for us. We can. We're not called to do that. If we never do it, we've never done God an injustice by not doing it. But if we create something that becomes, man-made, mandatory, this is how we have to do it. You have to do, 3 prayers, 2 songs, a sermon, sermonette, and, 2 prayers, closing prayer, and wash your feet and go out the door, then that comes the problem. But God doesn't restrict us from doing that. We've got to be careful, and it can become a slippery slope, especially in our age with all the different religiosities that are around us, from everything from Buddhism, Hinduism, and non-isms, and all these isms. It's so easy because we get trapped in this. That sometimes it's hard. We're not forbidden to do it. We've just got to be careful if we do it.
I want to throw in here real quick. Wendy's on the ferry right now. Some people know what I'm talking about, and her signal's going in and out. So she said, "Thank you for the class, Terry. Great class." Now I've got a couple other things to cover. Terry, was you through with that?
No, yeah, I'm through with what I wanted to cover tonight, because I knew that the seventh day was going to be something to come about, and especially from my past.
I got some more worms to cover.
Well, let's go fishing.
Okay, so
fishing.
So again, I like to rephrase things that come in, questions and things of that nature, so we can fit them in
to cover everybody.
So if we plant a seed and that seed grows, are we creating?
No, we're maintaining.
If we form a car, if we make a car, if we create a car, are we creating?
Yeah, there's an aspect of creating there. Man has an aspect of creation within, because we have God's image within us.
But we didn't create that from nothing.
We didn't create it from nothing. All we're doing is we're taking the ingredients, like,
that's where I was going,
flour and shortening and making biscuits.
And that's where I was going with it.
Yeah, we're
everything that has been to be created has been created, and we're just kind of moving it around and manipulating it to
kind of like what Rabbi Hirsch uses an example of, the willow limbs just laying there, and then you sit there with a few minutes and you weave them into a basket. That's your melachah. It's your creative work. You've took the ingredients that God has already made, and you've created something with it.
But so the word create is what I'm going for. Us creating a basket is different than God creating something from nothing.
Yes.
Okay.
But also, again, when it comes to the Jews, when we get to, I didn't pull that passage up tonight. I probably should have, but the other place where melachah comes in, where God tells Israel not to melachah on the Shabbat, in the building of the tabernacle. They studied the building of the tabernacle, and there are 39 categorical melachos, what they call melachos, or creative activities. And in those 39 categories is what they're not supposed to do on the Sabbath, which doesn't pertain to us.
Okay. Well, I think,
so, because even like the understanding that right here, share with you two things. I got a blank piece of paper, and I make a line on it. I just did a work of melachah. I created. Actually, that line wasn't there. Now it is. So writing is a creative activity. In the building of the tabernacle, there's also an aspect of tearing. Tearing is a creative activity. These are simple little bitty things I'm just sharing with you about how it involves. It's very, very, very involved. The melachah, the creative activities that God ceased from, and that which he calls Israel to cease from, not us, is very extensive. Very, very extensive. And he did not burden normative humanity with that. He only burdened the one nation.
So on that aspect,
and burden's the wrong word in a way, but duty. He gave that duty to them. He didn't give that duty to us.
Okay. On that aspect, not this not giving distinction between the Jew and the Gentile at this time, just creation in general.
Creation in general.
When the Creator ceased from creating, everything that even we could put together and seemingly create in the future was already created then.
And in essence,
we
yes.
just manipulated it, made it,
right.
heated the slag in the fire and made steel,
right.
and manipulated the copper and brought it. Now let's talk about nature. Nature is just something that God put in place, and it's really nature really don't create when a seed comes from the ground. It's the seed. Everything is already there, right?
Everything is there, and it becomes I guess in a way, in a human way, it recognizes its reality.
Okay.
However, its purpose.
And that's not really creating.
That's not creating.
The only creating from nothing that was done, the Creator did it.
Right. And when I love how Rabbi Hirsch says he ceased making any alterations, and now he only maintains. Okay?
Now
the alterations that he was making is not the same kind of alterations that we are making when we make some. The alterations that he was making was designing something to become, like with man, he designed man to be whatever, or a fish to be that. He's no longer doing that anymore. He's no longer altering anything to form a piece of creation that has a purpose. It's done for him. He says, I'm done with that. It's enough. And then he's given the earth to us, and we can recognize and remember. We can actually, on the Sabbath day, if you want to take some time to stop and recognize that God ceased creating. He stopped. Everything is the way he wants it to be. There's not a problem with that. We're not supposed to make it a spiritual weekly event. But the Sabbath day is a day for man to remember the creation. We are to remember the creation, because it was to that point God was doing all the creation. Now he's done. Now we can stop and look at what he has done. I mean, there's been times I've gone on Saturdays, and wife and kids, we've taken hikes in the woods and enjoyed creation, just walking around, looking at the flowers and the bees and swatting the mosquitoes. But it just enjoyed creation, or walking on the beach. Like I think Bob brought that up. If you have an event like that you enjoy to do with your family, it's a good teaching moment, to go look at God's creation and study it.
So I think the question that came in, actually a couple of them, weren't really, again, and I hate to say it this way, not dealing with the distinction of the Gentile and the Jew, or not even dealing with Sabbath and not doing anything or being able to do anything. So I'm going to kind of present two of the questions that came in the same way, so I can present this. So ongoing creation is by man and nature, not God.
Right. It's continuing on as he developed. I mean, he gave us the ability to create. But all we're doing is we're operating in the abilities that he's given us.
Right. But so let me just take it a little bit further. We're not actually creating. Nature is not actually creating. Nature is moving in what it was intended to do, and we are just taking what the Creator already created and molding it, manipulating it, if you would.
Kind of like a potter taking clay.
Yeah, and fashion it for our needs.
For our needs, our purposes, yes.
So I guess the distinction I was trying to make was that's different from
what God was doing. When God was doing his creating is totally different from what we do. We can't create at that level.
We can cut a tree down.
We cannot make the alterations that he was making at that level.
Yeah.
We can make alterations, but not at that same level. We don't have that ability.
hanging the moon and the sun and the stars and causing
giving them duties. Hey, sun, you're going to be the sun. You're going to represent the daytime. Moon, you're going to represent the nighttime. You know, the ocean is only going to be allowed to come this far up on the land, and he put a boundary there that we can't see. You know, those alterations that he was making, we can't make. We cannot manipulate the laws of nature like way he does. And that's a part of creating, when he was manipulating the laws and creating the different laws and causing some to go this far and some to not go that far. We don't have the ability to make those form of alterations. That's what he ceased in. There's no more new laws of creation. All the laws are there already. There's no more new human beings being made. We're reproducing the human beings that came from Adam and Eve.
Okay.
So we have a form of alteration that he has given us permission to do. We just don't have to be able to go to his level, the level which he ceased.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ronald.
Yeah, we take what God's created and mold it into utensils, but we're only taking what's already been put here for us to use, and we fashion it. We don't create it. We fashion it into implements that are useful. Yeah,
there's actually there's different words. The word create that's used there is bara, when he's creating something from nothing. Yeah. But then there's a word that's used there as fashioned. That's I can't remember how to pronounce it, but there's a word there for fashion. And then there's another one that's translated as form, which is yetzer, to form. So you have to create, to make, and to form are three different words. Bob's got his book out. He's looking that up, aren't you, Bob?
All right. Well,
but there are three different words there that are used. Like I said, when we've all been raised with translation, and that's what's, messed us up when we've made belief systems and stances and doctrines out of translations without going back to the original words, the original text, understanding what the text actually is saying. Again, when someone says, well, God tells me to keep the Sabbaths, it's in the 10 Commandments. Well, you need to read that first sentence that's left off of the 10 Commandments. It's actually part of it. It's got cherry picked. It got picked with what they wanted to, but when we look at he gave it to it, he gave those to Israel. It's really to have them in our courthouses and have them in our schools. Believe it or not, I'm against that. It's weird, I know, because there are moralities that can learn from it. But that's why we really need to get the 7 universal laws that's never ceased to be since Adam needs to be established. And it's for all humanity, every culture, every human being. Prohibition of idolatry, blasphemy, know the one true God. Don't curse him. Don't commit murder. Don't commit theft. Don't commit forbidden sexual relations. Don't eat meat taken from a living animal. Set up courts of justice. Why? I see people with YouTube videos wanting to come against that. What do you have against you shouldn't murder? We have those laws in our laws. They're just not, God did not give us to them to us like he did Israel in the 10. Ours was developed as our relationship with God, which we're going to see that when we get here in Genesis chapter 2, when we get to 16 and 17, those verses, you're going to see the beginning of man's moral training. And we're going to see from the sages how God developed man and how he gave us these things that we are supposed, and a majority of these we were supposed to understand ourselves without being told. It's just simple. When God said, you've got all the trees in the garden and I've got this one, what does that tell you? That's yours. This is mine. There's a boundary. Don't take what's not yours. Don't look at, don't lust after it. Don't whatever. I mean, however you want to look at it, it's not told to us in those ways. But by him establishing a boundary should tell the human being, oh, there's a boundary there that I shouldn't cross. And we're going to get into that. I'm giving you a little precursor to verses 16, 17 there. But if we had those 7 categorical commandments that some religious people want to fight against, it's stupid. Who wants to go against, okay, we shouldn't blaspheme God, or we shouldn't worship idols and things like that, or commit theft, or having weird sexual relations, which we've been experiencing all over the world here in the last decade or more. But all of this is, we get that. When a man shall join into his wife and they shall become one flesh. We're going to learn about that. It's there in Genesis. In the beginning, God gave us it all. Everything we need to know. Scotty, you got me on my soapbox.
So I got to throw another one in here.
Okay.
Deism and theism. Have you?
Not going to talk about that tonight.
Okay.
But in my book, I consider myself, I guess I consider myself a theist. I don't know. I've looked at it in the past, but I haven't really looked at it. I am a monotheist.
Well, true. That's one God. Both deism and theism believe in one God. It's just how much God is.
That would be an interesting study to get into. I haven't really delved into those. But believe it or not, a lot of our founding fathers of the United States were those.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that sometime.
Well, that might make us a good study, Scotty, to get into, and maybe you and I can get together and do a video or something and put it on the YouTube group.
Okay.
And just research that out, because that'd be those are really, really good questions. Those are really good questions and subjects that we need to look at.
All right. Well, are we about to come to a close? We've been at it almost an hour and 30 minutes.
If you got the lid on that can of worms,
I put them in the refrigerator.
You put them in the refrigerator. Okay, so
my wife opened the door of my refrigerator, our refrigerator one time. She said, "What's this in the styrofoam cup?" I said, "You don't want to know." So
don't worry.
I've got my own little refrigerator right over here, and I left some worms in there for about 6 months.
Oh,
but you know what? They were still alive.
Okay, they didn't get too
cold. They had newspaper. It was just cold. They don't work good when they're cold, but when you bring them out and warm them back up, they're just ready to go. It's heat that they don't work in.
Yeah, they don't work good. So, yeah, when I was dating my wife, my roommate and I, we went out and got a pet. We wanted something different. My wife come over one day and she opened the refrigerator and there's this big old can of crickets in there. And the one with the screen so you can see them all jumping around. And she goes, "What are these crickets doing in the refrigerator?" I said, "Oh, that's for," and I pointed over, and Kevin and I went out and got us a Mexican white-kneed tarantula. And so that was her food.
Yeah.
And she goes, "You're not keeping neither one of those when we get married." I'm like, okay.
I was at one of our rental properties that I take care of, and they had this glass aquarium there, and there was sawdust in it and some rocks, but the top had gone off of it. And then I saw in another one, they had some mice running around. They just all in there. And I thought, well, they must have put them all over there. I don't know what's in that aquarium. So then later on that afternoon, the couple called and said, "We just wondering if you come out and worked on the refrigerator." I said, "Yeah, I did." And they said, "You didn't see our pet snake running around here nowhere, did you?" And I said, "You didn't hear me holler, did you?"
No. Ooh.
So boa constrictor. I think that's what it was called. I don't know. But anyway, Terry, I'm going to bring us to a close.
Bring us to a close.
I pulled in
we've
worms.
had a good class, guys. Thank you for being with us.
All right, everybody. Those of you that have stayed with us through Power Faith Radio through this class tonight, we thank you so much. Please send us an email you can send that email to outreachnoah@gmail.com, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. If you're watching this on YouTube, we appreciate you so much. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. You'll be notified every time a new video goes up, and share this video with all your social media platforms. Go over and find us on Facebook, Simple Walk, and there you'll find all the links to join our Zoom room, the YouTube, the radio, all that. And remember, Veronica his group, Simply Noahide, is raising money over there to help family get their AC fixed, and so that. But you can go on over there. Any amount is greatly appreciated. They have, that's a Chase fund, isn't it, Veronica? Isn't that a Chase fund?
Hesed fund.
Hesed fund.
Hesed fund. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Chase.
It's a kindness fund.
Yeah. And, but go on over there and just give what you can and be greatly appreciated. So, all right. Did you want to say something else about that, Veronica?
No, I was just saying thank you.
Okay. Please, everybody go on over there and check that out. And what was you saying, Terry?
I say, God willing, we'll see you next Wednesday.
We'll see you next Wednesday, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.